With Plug, Scourge, and Shivka having been defeated, there was no one left to stand between the crew and their freedom. At least, no one aboard the Man's Promise. Despite her eagerness to take charge, Sandara Quinn suggested a vote the following morning to decide who would be captain. Along with Sandara Quinn, Una threw her barnacle-infested hat into the race, along with Marek at the behest of Slippery Sill. Luckily, Vincent had the ink, paper, and foresight to facilitate this process. With the candidates decided, the tense mood gradually lifted. Former enemies had become reluctant allies, and all lowered their weapons. All but Crimson Cog, who was the last to let his guard down, before a visibly shaken Mahim. Eventually, the blood was washed away, and the fallen were given to the sea. All but Mr. Plug, whose body was taken by the Rahaduni sailors for their own funeral ritual. Wounded, but finally free, an exhausted Owlbear collapsed into the captain's hammock for a long and well-deserved rest. The sky overhead grew dark with clouds before night had come. But not even a looming storm could dampen the celebration that erupted once the realization had finally set in. They were free. And not only free to live, but finally free to do as they pleased. The crew celebrated with cactus wine as Taka led Rosie and Conkabar in song. The two smaller performers faltered for a short time when they couldn't seem to agree on the particulars of a heroic battle. However, Taka resolved matters and smoothed everything over neatly, as only a bard of his caliber could. Denia joined Cog in the celebrations after managing to convince him to make peace with Mahim. Caliban and Una playfully teased Kanaka for resorting to violence during the skirmish. The two goaded Kanaka into a chant of "Do-Wah-Pa," which, according to Marek, roughly translates to plot twist. Though seemingly nonsensical to Marek, the chant was infectious, and before long the rest of the crew had joined in the raucous call of "Do-Wah-Pa." But not everyone found pleasure in song and dance. More concerned with making it to shore alive, Marek spent the evening plotting their course and organizing the crew's responsibilities, until Syl managed to coax him out of the officer's cabin and join her for a drink. Vincent was finally able to improve the ship as he saw fit, and wasted no time in gathering the materials needed for his many plans for the soon-to-be former Man's Promise. At the height of the festivities, the prospective captains each spoke their piece in front of a rapt audience. And though Sandara and Una had compelling words for their fellow crew members, it was Marek's simple sincerity that struck a chord with all who listened. Thus ended the 20th day, since our adventurers awoke as captives of the Wormwood. The following morning, some woke early to greet the dawn as free sailors. Others slept in blissfully late without Scourge or the Chelish clock to wake them. Caliban called for Kanaka to aid him in a strange and very personal ritual. The two approached Conkabar. Caliban explained that what he was about to do was a tradition among his people when they had found their mate. Caliban proceeded to remove one of his tentacles in a rather gruesome display, and offered it to Concobar as a show of love and devotion. A startled and somewhat frazzled Kanaka healed Caliban's wound immediately and left the two to enjoy their strange, intimate moment together. Eventually, the stragglers were called to report to the deck for the vote. They were each handed a scrap of paper and something to write with. They each wrote the name of the captain who they chose, and it was placed into a hat. After all the votes were tallied, the clear winner was Marek. It appeared that Slippery Sill had indeed assisted in his attempt to become captain. At what cost? Only time will tell. Taking to his new position like a fish to water, Marek wasted no time in following Plug's initial course and setting the rest of the crew to work. Vincent offered his services as shipwright, and Denia offered her opinions on delegation, which landed her in the position of first mate. Kanaka was promoted to head cook, a position that she had not been vying for, but the decision was made more for the benefit of the crew than anything else. Una took over the stores of her own volition, taking on the role of quartermaster. Caliban, who was already intimately familiar with the seas of Galarian, was named navigator. Taka, whose heart only desires good music, food, and company, was assigned the role of master scrivener. Surely the hours of work that he had done for Peppery could be put to good use keeping the ship's records. Finally, Sandara, whose counsel was still indispensable, had become the ship's surgeon. Who better to heal their wounds than the woman who had saved them from the brink of death countless times before? With the sky growing ever darker, Captain Marek, Vincent, and a small group of advisors gathered to discuss their next course of action. Una was quick to point out their waning stores and coffers. They would have to replenish their stock soon if they wanted to sustain themselves. However reluctant, Denia presented the terrible solution of following through with Harrigan's original plan. This was, of course, not an option, not even a little. There was absolutely no chance that they would ever present Denia to Harrigan's contact and would never, ever follow through with Harrigan's plan. No matter what Rachel actually wrote in the recap, it was never going to be an option. Ever. No matter their course, the waters ahead were uncertain, but they would face the unknown together. And this is where we find ourselves.